David Lieberman. I live in Portland, Oregon. I work at Oregon Health and Science University, and I had the honor of being AGA president in 2018 to 2019.
Could you give us a little background on how you got into the medical field and also specifically gastroenterology?
My experience in medicine really started when I was pretty young because I was interested in science in general. And then I thought the opportunity to work with patients would be exciting. Early on, I did some laboratory bench research, and I learned that I really preferred to be able to focus on patients. And so my career became very patient-oriented, both from the clinical standpoint, but also from the research standpoint. And GI appealed to me during my residency, because of the diversity of issues that come to a gastroenterologist and the ability to perform procedures and interventions that were both diagnostic and therapeutic.
So I'm curious, what would you tell someone who's considering a career in gastroenterology today?
If I were counseling somebody today, which I do all the time with medical residents, I would tell them that GI is a very exciting subspecialty. And because we can make a real difference in the lives of our patients. Our ability to intervene and improve outcomes is very rewarding. For example, my work in colon cancer, over the course of my career, we have seen a significant reduction in the burden of colon cancer. We know that we can stop GI bleeding. We can remove stones that are clogging a bile duct. We can dilate a strictured esophagus in a patient who can't swallow. All that and more. So I think what I would convey to somebody thinking about a subspecialty in GI is that it is still exciting. We're still learning. Things like the microbiome remain a mysterious black box that we know plays an important role in both health and disease, but we're still learning about it. So there's a lot of exciting things that will happen in the future.
Definitely. So I'm curious, what motivated you to join the AGA governing board and eventually become president?
I got involved in professional organizations pretty early in my career. One of my mentors was Emmett Keefe, who was a past president of the AGA and unfortunately has passed away. But he really encouraged me to get involved in professional organizations. And I have to say, it's been one of the most enjoyable and rewarding aspects of my career. I've developed friendships and collaborations all over the world thanks to this involvement with the organizations. For me, the AGA has been an absolutely wonderful home, both as a source of education, but also nurturing research. And the depth and the breadth of the AGA really drew me towards deeper involvement. And there were some great opportunities to make a difference in our specialty that were possible through the AGA. So before I joined the board, I served on several committees and task forces. I became the associate editor of gastroenterology, which was quite a challenge. And then the opportunity to join the board and participate in leadership was a terrific challenge that I welcomed.
So what do you recollect from your time as president? What kinds of issues did AGA focus on?
So the year that I was president, we tackled a number of different specific topics, and I will talk about a few of them, I think. One of the issues we dealt with during that year was ABIM recertification. We wanted to ensure that this process was a truly educational experience, not just a punitive one. And so there was a lot of back and forth with the ABIM, which continued before, it started before I was president and continued after. We were also focused on the advocacy side in thinking about colon cancer screening loopholes. And by that, I mean, these were loopholes from the 2010 Affordable Care Act, which was supposed to cover screening without any copays, but in reality resulted in some unfortunate loopholes, so that patients who had a colonoscopy for screening, had polyps detected and removed, that was now termed a therapeutic colonoscopy, and there was a copay billed with that. And likewise, patients that had non-invasive testing with a test like FIT and were positive and went on to colonoscopy, that colonoscopy was called a diagnostic colonoscopy. And again, patients were billed. So the lobbying efforts that occurred during the year I was president and afterwards really focused on trying to eliminate some of these loopholes. We spent a lot of time during that year focused on inter-society relationships and trying to improve our ability to work with the other organizations. We codified the Multi-Society Task Force on Colon Cancer Screening, but which I think can be a model potentially for other multi-society efforts. We spent a lot of time focused on guidelines and how to set the standards for guidelines, and we set very high standards for guidelines. And then we followed up on a program initiated by Michael Camilleri when he was president to produce clinical practice updates. And the idea behind this was to provide guidance for key clinical issues, which were not guideline ready, but were nevertheless questions that came up every day in clinical practice. So they were really extraordinarily valuable to clinicians. And I give Dr. Camilleri credit for coming up with this idea, and we basically implemented this. The other focus, I think, for the board during the year I was president was to try to change the culture of the board to be more strategic and less tactical. So we used a series of meetings to move the board in a more strategic direction. And I think this approach not only empowered committees to fulfill missions recommended by the board, but it also resulted in less micromanagement by the board and helped focus the board on key mission issues. We've developed a mission statement and we redesigned the strategic plan. The other activity that I thought was really important was developing a process for sunsetting programs. So historically, one of the hardest things I think for organizations in general to do is to sunset a program that's not achieving goals. Usually that program has some advocate that really cares about the program. And therefore, once the program started, it just tends to continue. And as part of our strategic approach, we developed a process to insist that every AGA program should have benchmarks of success. What does success look like? A timeline for achieving